this is going to be cleanly administered, and billions were stolen from the public purse. And yet he still manages to be somewhat above the fray. So I think it takes quite a cunning political operator to do that.
Why does Cyril Ramaphosa remain so popular in spite of his party's failings, the ANC? In this clip taken from the Worldview channel, David Ansara, Chief Operating Officer at the Center for Risk Analysis, answers this question, as well as to provide a brief overview as to the political environment in South Africa.
I think it was Dr. Frans Cronje who said that the problem with economic growth, and this is what the ANC sees as the problem with economic growth, is once they produce economic growth, people then tend to go towards the Democratic Alliance or the other parties. They see prosperity, and with this new, they want more. They want more that the DA and these other parties might provide them. So isn't there an argument to make that the ANC doesn't want economic prosperity?
Look, I think there's some validity to that. One of the other headwinds facing the ANC is that when people move to an urban area, then their voting patterns start to change. And so a lot of people have moved to urban areas in an attempt to improve their life circumstances. For many of them, even if they're living in a shack on the outskirts of town, it's better than living in a rural area where there's no opportunity. And so you do also see the data tending in that direction as well.
That's interesting.
So, yeah. And I mean, this was the case in Zimbabwe as well. MDC was where in the urban strongholds, ZANU-PF increasingly became a rural party. And so a lot of the Operation Murambatsvina, which was basically the urban clear out, was designed specifically to target urban opposition voters.
So my next question would be, why has no political party really capitalized on this? Why do you think all the political parties, the opposition, is struggling to really capture these voters that have now turned away?
Look, I mean, I don't actually agree with the underlying assumption. So, I mean, certainly the DA in the last election, they got 20.6%, I think it was. So they went back slightly, but there has been a fragmentation of the vote. The EFF has also obviously grown to about 10%. So I think that's the EFF is also, it comes from the same kind of ideological tradition as the ANC, albeit a more radical version. So, if you lump those two together, you're still seeing north of about 67% of electoral support for the ANC aligned parties, if you will. But, I also think that there has been a proliferation of smaller parties that we've seen, smaller opposition parties. And, I think the media does have a role to play in this as well. Often you'll see a narrative around, when the latest corruption scandal breaks in the ANC, for example, people say, well, what is to be done here? We couldn't possibly find another party to challenge the ANC, but here you have the DA in the Western Cape running very clean administrations, very efficient, and the media just almost refuses to talk about them. It's like they don't exist. So, and so I think that the traditional media has a lot of the burden of responsibility there for kind of being very dismissive and hostile towards the DA, and I think unwarranted.
Do you think it's because they consider them a liberal party and they generally just have a negative attitude towards liberalism?
Enjoying this analysis? Click here to sign up for our 30-day free trial for more content from the CIA.
I think so. I think there's some of that. I think also the ANC has done very well to position itself as a hegemonic force. And I think that's why people were advocating for Mr. Ramaphosa as, if you consider the Business Day editor, Peter Bruce, he was saying, Ramaphosa is the least worst option within the ANC. And can you consider voting for anybody else in the ANC. But that serves to reinforce and normalize this idea that the ANC, Tina, there is no alternative. But I think that gave Mr. Ramaphosa a lot of cover. And today we've seen now expropriation without compensation is being driven through Parliament. There's some kind of roadblocks there around, and debate between the EFF and the ANC around this issue of custodial takings. We now have increased talk of national health insurance. There was the riots, obviously, which showed the breakdown in the security services. So in many ways, we have continuity with past ANC policies, but also backsliding on basic things like property rights, the rule of law, and law and order as well. So, I think definitely the Ramaphosa that was put forward in 2017, 2018, I think has been shown to be a bit of an illusion.
Is it though? Well, in terms of the public's perception, doesn't he still enjoy like a 60% approval rating?
Yeah, so I think one of Mr. Ramaphosa's skills as a politician is to be able to distance himself from the shortcomings of his party, even though he will often say, "I'm a party man. I put unity of the ANC above anything else."
It's Makashule or it's Bekachile.
Yeah, so I think becomes a lot of the blowback gets absorbed by some of his colleagues in the cabinet. But he seems to always manage to emerge unscathed. I think he's a very cunning political operator. I think he kind of comes across as this kind of genial guy, a consensus seeker. But, I think it's pretty remarkable how much he's been able to evade some of the, if you consider the PPE corruption scandal during his watch. I mean, he gave assurances that this is going to be cleanly administered, and billions were stolen from the public purse. And yet he still manages to be somewhat above the fray. So I think it takes quite a cunning political operator to do that. Many people say, he's playing 4D chess, he's playing the long game. I think he has been able to convince people that that's what he's doing, but I think more like he's more in a reactive short-term mode.
If you like this analysis from us, the Center for Risk Analysis, please click on the link below to our 30-day free trial. And if you enjoyed the conversation, then you might want to have a look at the full video clip on the Worldview channel with David Ansara, which is in the description below, as well as pinned in the comment section. Until next time, take care.